Yeah. Oh. Sorry, folks. I think I'm actually live, and I'm not even saying anything. Again, I apologize. I wasn't planning on going live today, even though it is Science Skeptics Sunday, but I found a new book, and I decided that I needed to go, mainly just to clear my head so that I might actually be able to get some sleep tonight. Because of that, I am streaming from home, which I really don't like doing because my MacBook is a POS and just can't seem to handle OBS. So we'll see how this goes. Now, yeah, so why am I doing this? And particularly why did I name the title of the stream the way that I did? Well, because I just got a new book. Eric, friend of the channel, gave me this, sent this to me, sent the Amazon link to me, and I was like, well, what the hell? I have Kindle Unlimited. Why not just, get one of these? Or get this. Howdy sea lion. Hopefully my audio and video are coming through. So this, just to let people know, and I will probably say this a few different times, this has nothing to do with Tychosium. I'm still wondering how I'm going to be dealing with that. Again, this is a rant stream because, as I said, Eric, friend of the channel, sent me an Amazon link to a book by a Mr. Mark Gober. Apologies if I mispronounced that. According to Mark's bio, video is choppy. I wouldn't doubt it because I am, as I just mentioned, I am streaming from home and my MacBook sucks. So hopefully we can make do. I do apologize for that. Hopefully the audio is fine. Let me know if the audio doesn't come through, because really that's the most important thing. Because as Mick Toon pointed out in one of his streams recently, I like to talk. Yeah, that's the important part. And considering I'm not going to have any visuals for this rant, yeah, don't really need a video. Anyway, Mark Gober. Again, apologies. I don't know. I've never heard your name pronounced. According to his bio, Mr. Gober is a Princeton grad. I think, based on the bio, he got his undergraduate degree from Princeton, and I don't know what in. However, he is an author of a few different books. His gimmick is an end to the upside down blank. And so the book that I have is, of course, The End to the Upside Down Cosmos. There we go. To give you an idea of where this person's headspace is at, or where basically his worldview is, he has another book, which I'm going to send to Conspiracy Cats to see if he's interested in reviewing it. It is an end to the upside down diseases, I guess. I don't know what the name of it is, but basically he disputes the idea of germ theory. So he is very much of a science skeptic. So the subtitle of this book is Rethinking the Big Bang, Heliocentrism, the Lights in the Sky, and Where We Live. Here we go. His books are An End to Upside Down Thinking, Dispelling the Myth that the Brain Produces Consciousness, and Implications for Everyday Life, An End to Upside Down Living, Reorienting Your whatever. An End to Upside Down Liberty. Pretty sure you can figure out what that's all about. An End to Upside Down Contact, UFOs, Aliens, and Spirits. And While why their ongoing interaction with human civilization matters. An end to the upside-down reset, the leftist vision of society under the quote-unquote Great Reset, and how it can fool caring people into supporting harmful causes. And then finally, an end to upside-down medicine, contagion, viruses, and vaccines, and why consciousness is needed for a new paradigm of health. Now, I just read the introduction, and this is the part that got me. Let's see here. I apologize, I'm just flipping through it, so might take me a while to get to things, but all right. Challenging thought processes. He lists, I think, 8 or 9. I'll go over the highlights of them. The first one is falsifying one model does not require having a viable or complete alternative model. Here's the kicker. This is quoting the book. Cosmology researcher Austin Witsit describes this principle using the phrase, quote unquote, falsification is independent of replacement. The exercise of falsifying one model is independent of finding a definitive replacement model. This is a process of elimination that narrows down the possible truths. He quotes someone else of note, who I'm hoping to, I actually need to get back to him. I'm hoping to actually have a conversation with this gentleman sooner rather than later. Where is it? It might take me a sec to find this one. Or I might just, punt and tell you who it is and figure it out later. Here we go. 6. Testing something on Earth alone in the present moment is insufficient to draw conclusions about the broader cosmos in the past and in the future. And yes, I will come back to these and give you my thoughts on them. But I just wanted to start off by illustrating whom this author is quoting that is still alive. Yes, he quotes Tesla. Yes, he quotes Kichu or whatever the fuck his name is. I don't know. Obama's science advisor, who I have less respect for than Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, he gets quoted. Anyway, I digress. As stated by physicist Robert Bennett, PhD, when we draw a test, the test has to match what the hypothesis claims. Emphasis authors. So, if you claim something is going to apply throughout all space, you cannot test it only on Earth. If you say it's in the solar system, you have to be able to test it throughout the solar system. This is what's overlooked very often in the statements of laws, the scope of the laws This is what's overlooked very often in the statements of laws in space, the scope of the laws. It's a poorly phrased statement. So yeah, this is a book written by a Princeton grad. Now, again, I might be making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know. I think as when I bought it, it had 39 reviews. Ironically, most, if not most, are 5s with one star. And what I find to be interesting is that the 1-star review reads as if it comes from a science skeptic who thinks that the author, Mr. Gober, goes too far in admitting what is science, or essentially, apparently there are things that Mr. Gober claims are factual about science that even this reader doesn't think are real. So all of the reviews seem to be, again, from the science skeptic community. I don't know how many books he sold. Apparently, he is quite prolific. He has written, 10 books or so. I don't know. And so here's my issue. Austin Witsit is gaining traction. I mean, he was on InfoWars. He is now credited as a cosmology researcher in a book. Again, I don't know how widespread this is, how much of an audience this particular individual has, but this is starting to get into my realm of not interest, of education, I guess. I know it's ironic. I am on YouTube. I profess to wanting to make YouTube a second career and be a science communicator and an educator. But I don't learn from YouTube, and I don't advocate that people learn from YouTube. YouTube is it's like Wikipedia. It's a great place to start. But if you really want to learn about a subject, you need to go to books. And yeah, I'm a boomer. You can call me a boomer if you want to, but a book is the most concise way that you can find the information. Granted, we can talk about how credible is the author and all that kind of good stuff. But in terms of actually learning, I find that books are really the first major avenue through which to do so. YouTube is a stepping stone. It opens the door. But books are where it's at. So finding Austin Witsit's name in print sends up a red flag. And yeah, so it sends up enough of a red flag that I have to actually make this post or make this video so that I can potentially go to sleep. Not in the mood, Luna. Not in the mood. So guess what? You get the brush. Brush. Oh no, the brush. Gotta run away. Okay. Robot zombie robot. Seems you didn't want to learn about World War II, huh? Oh, I'm assuming, is that David? Hi, David. No, it's not that I didn't want to learn about World War II. It's that I have a priority list of things that I want to get done and so forth. And right now I am up to my fucking ears in work. And unfortunately, learning about World War II is low on that priority list. The reason why I'm streaming right now is because, as I've stated a couple of times, I'm irritated. And I really just need to get this out in order to be able to sleep. So yeah. Michikaku. That's who that fuckwit is. Sorry, I'm going to try to keep this as civil and as cool-headed as I possibly can. He quotes this thing: there is a crisis in cosmology. Usually in science, if you're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something is wrong with the theory. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10,120. Oh, actually, I think that's a misprint. 10 to the 120th. That is 1! With 120 zeros after it. It is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science. The reason why I hate this quote is because it is so out of context and misleading as to be deceitful. Yes, there is a crisis in cosmology. But to say this, it's the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in history, is honestly overstating the issue or the discrepancy that is at hand. But that's not where I'm going with this. The reason why I bring up that quote is because he gets quoted a lot by science skeptics, and they use that quote as a bludgeon to illustrate or to say that modern science doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. So he opens this. La 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 la. It only takes 30 minutes. David, to watch it takes 30 minutes. To actually think about it and work on it takes longer than that. And again, as I've said, I'm busy as shit. I have I have my day job, which has nothing to do with World War II, and I have this. So, anyway. So, of course, the introduction is errors in physics and thinking. Actually, I'm going to hold off on that for a sec. So, I don't remember where. I think it was on Discord somewhere. It may have been on Globe Gangsters, which is where I'm usually hanging out these days if I'm on Discord at all. And it was, what's his face? Not what's his face. It was PhD Tony speaking with, and I don't remember who his interlocutor was or who he was talking to. It was somebody who's fairly well known within the Discord Flat Earth community. Oh, no. I'm walking that way back. This is a new dude, or at least new to me. And he was talking about the ability of science to describe reality. And which, in and upon itself, I think is a very valid and interesting conversation to have. But the problem is, the crux of the conversation that we are having, and really it was between this gentleman and PhD Tony, was whether or not philosophy was a valid methodology for describing the reality of, or physical reality. PhD Tony said no. I don't remember if any of his quotes, but I got the strong impression that Tony is, in fact, not a fan of philosophy in any way, shape, or form. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that the field of philosophy is completely and utterly useless, and anyone who majors in it is throwing away their education. I strongly object to this. Philosophy, I believe, has a definitive and necessary goal or necessary function within human society, and it is definitely a legitimate and is a legitimate and powerful tool to look at things like ethics, how society should function, possibly even morality, if you wish, if you are not of if you do not have a relationship with a divine being. Philosophy, I think, is necessary for us to try to understand how we should live our lives and to treat one another. So to say that there is no, to say that, again, this is for Tyson really, to say that philosophy is utterly useless and a complete waste of time is a statement that had to be made so far up his ass, Tyson must have been looking at his gallbladder. It is incredibly narrow. It is incredibly short-sighted, and to the point of, in my opinion, harmful. So Tony was very much against this idea of, philosophy having any role in describing reality in any way. And there was this discussion, and this was born from a discussion of the scientific method. And Tony had said basically the scientific method had been done since effectively, since you have conscious being. I can't remember exactly where he put it, but he basically was saying things like, which describe trial and error, where if you did something and it didn't work, then you do something else. And so forth, you're applying the scientific method. I would disagree with that. I think there you're applying trial and error, which is simply an aspect of the scientific method. I would agree with whoever he was speaking to insofar as to say the scientific method is a philosophical construct, that it was developed in a philosophical framework. Turn my redirects on. I have no idea what redirects are, so yeah. Sorry, Maya. Apologies if people are having trouble getting to me. So I believe that the scientific method has a philosophical framework for the purpose of being able to do science outside of a bias, particularly of a worldview. Essentially, it is to make science objectively true, or objective, not objectively true. I'm going to stay away from that word because I think that word, as this person is too loaded, far too loaded. So I'm going to try not to say the word true. If I say it, please call my ass out on it. So the scientific principle, or the scientific method, is a way through which science can be done objectively, such that results can be trusted, and that results are not biased in any way by the belief system of the scientist. Now, in the application of science, that is not philosophical at all. And I will definitely get back to this. You know, I actually, evening, Patrick's. Yeah, apologies, Patrick's. This actually has nothing to do with Tychosium. I just needed a thumbnail, and yeah, anyway. But where was I going with this? Scientific method. Oh, yes. And again, I might get a little salty here. I'm a scientist. I am not someone who studies logic. I am not a philosopher. I am not a rhetorician. So let me count how many fucks I give about fallacies. Oh yeah, none. 0 fucks. If you use the word fallacy in a discussion with me, I'm going to knock you in respect in my mind. Not much, but a little bit. Because I don't give a fuck about whether of Mott and Bailey or reification or any of that shit. If I say something that you find objectionable, use your fucking words and tell me what it is that I said that is wrong or you disagree with. Because if you say, oh, that's a reification fallacy, I honestly have no fucking idea what you're talking about because I don't study logic. I study science. When we are trying to get to things such as, does the Earth reside in the center of the universe? Does the sun reside in the center of the universe? Is there a center to the universe at all? This is in the purview of science, and only science. If you're talking about the physical location of things, if you're talking about the physical mechanisms via which the universe operates, this is science. This is not philosophy. It is not logical manipulation. You cannot Q, then P, then Z, then fuck off your way into understanding how a star is formed. So, howdy, Phil Bell. So yeah. I think I've mentioned before, but I'm fucking tired of that shit. I'm so fucking tired of it. If we want to talk about this, we need to stop dealing with fallacies, and we need to call people out for using fallacies as a way of discussion. Because if we want to be honest, If we want to truly have an honest conversation about what our reality is from a physical standpoint, then we need to stop trying to one-up each other by using fancy terms and logical tricks. Because that is not fucking science. All right. So, first sentence in this book. According to modern physics, roughly 96% of the cosmos is composed of dark matter and dark energy. He goes on and actually rightly states that Zwicky was the first person who actually did a study of the Coma cluster and realized that the luminous matter was not nearly enough to account for Myriad. Hey, is there a tapioca weasel? I think there's a tapioca weasel. Hey, if none of you are aware, Maya, and forgive me, I'm probably going to butcher your last name, Maya Adkisson, she has a channel, the Bad Science Sundays. Definitely check that out. Sub, like, all that kind of good stuff. Become a channel member. Then you get nitties, weasels, and vaginas or something. She can explain. Anyway. So, yes, he gets it right in that the first sort of indication of dark matter was done by Zwicky in 1933, looking at the Coma cluster, and he realized that the velocities of the galaxies within this cluster, the rotation, basically rotating around, or moving around, say, the common center of gravity, it's too fast. They were moving too fast. Effectively, the luminous matter would not supply enough gravitational force to accelerate it to such velocities. I don't know if he actually called it dark matter or not, but whatever. That's essentially what it is. Then he talks about some dude named Pavel Krupa, a German astrophysicist. Again, he puts this in bold. He says, however, Pavel Krupa, whom I am not familiar with, a German biophysicist and professor at the University of Bonn, noted in a 2023 interview he thinks dark matter has been falsified with more than 5 sigma confidence. So it's not there, according to him. Krupa's argument is that the galaxy, so our current understanding is that from a galactic spatial scale, if you have the Milky Way galaxy, for example, dark matter, whatever it may happen to be, is spherically distributed across a halo with a rough constant density. It is slightly spherically constant, or there is a little bit more of it in the center than the outside, but not by a huge fraction. It's not homogeneous in density across the entire realm. It is centrally concentrated to a certain degree. Anyway, so yes, there is this dark matter halo, whatever it happens to be. And what Krupa is arguing is that stars, globular clusters and such, as they rotate around the galactic center, they would essentially be moving through dark matter as if it were a medium. His analogy is honey. And as it does so, as these objects do so, they would lose angular momentum, and these objects would begin to move, basically fall into the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And he made some observations, and lo and behold, he didn't see that. And his observations are such that I'm guessing, again, I haven't looked into the link, but I'm fairly positive that the 5 sigma confidence is, he is stating that these things are, his measurements do not show that these objects are losing angular momentum with a confidence of 5 sigma. That's not how it works. Dark matter ain't honey. Dark matter is not a medium. Dark matter is not fixed, as far as we know. if dark matter is out there, presumably it would be rotating with the galaxy itself. It is gravitationally interactive, and the gravity is what's caused the curvature of space-time is involved in the rotation of the galaxy. So he is making the assumption, rather, let me go that way because that's something that this dude really has a problem with. He's making the assumption that dark matter is a fixed medium that will rob objects of angular momentum as it pulls through. That's not how it's envisioned by anybody in current science, to my knowledge. So, yeah, whatever. Then he goes to quote that he talks about dark energy. 2006, report of the Dark Energy Task Force written by 13 esteemed academics from Harvard, Princeton, MIT, and other institutions. Oh, sorry, I get so few of these I completely forgot what I'm supposed to do. Anyway, thank you, Sea Lion Prime, for the $10 super chat. Just a heads up, Witsit was speaking on FEF early Saturday morning about getting his followers to come up with a list of PhDs to target for debates/interactions. You can disseminate this to however many people you want. I have always said I am down to have a discussion about any belief that is within the realm of astronomy, cosmology, that you have skepticism about. If you think the Earth is flat, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you think that the Earth is the center of the known universe, love to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to debate these things with you. That's not of interest to me. What's of interest to me is understanding where your position is coming from and hopefully gaining insight as to why you have that position to begin with. So yeah. Dr. Tapioca has become a member, Mercury member. Thank you. I have memberships if you want. So yeah, getting back to this. And again, thank you, Sea Lion. That's awesome. Really appreciate that. Dark energy appears to be the dominant component of the physical universe, yet there is no persuasive theoretical explanation for its existence or magnitude. The acceleration of the universe is, along with dark matter, the observed phenomenon that most directly demonstrates that our theories of fundamental particles and gravity are either incorrect or incomplete. Most experts believe that nothing short of a revolution in our understanding of fundamental physics will be required to achieve a full understanding of the cosmic acceleration. For these reasons, the nature of dark energy ranks among the very most compelling of all outstanding problems in physical science. Now, whoever these esteemed academics are, fully on board. I see you. I tell my students this. I am freely and I am open about the idea that I do not think that general relativity is the end-all be-all. I think, and I hope that within my lifetime, general relativity will be overturned. Because yes, there are issues in cosmology, and there are issues in those issues stem from relativity not being able to explain what's going on. Now, so yes, I fully believe, and again, I tell people that our theories of fundamental particles and gravity are either incomplete or incorrect. Yeah, fully on board with this. The problem is, and I will probably repeat myself for this, the problem with this is that because we don't have an answer for it, our current understanding of science, cosmology, has to be done away with. But he will later complain that when an alternative idea is brought forward, that it is not given credit because it does not explain everything. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either a idea of the universe a theory of the universe, has to explain everything, or it cannot be used. So, I'll come back to that. But it's this point that I see time and time again, is that there is this expectation that science has to be able to answer everything if it is to be legitimate, if it is to be trusted, if it is to be used. And that's simply impossible. That is simply and not impossible, that's not the word I'm looking for. That is you can't progress that way. If you cannot accept a theory as a framework for which to do experiments, if you cannot have a theory because it doesn't explain everything, then how do you develop new ideas without having that basic framework? You have to basically start from scratch every single time you want to do something. So this idea that because dark matter and dark energy are not fully explained, that cosmology as we know it, that the other aspects of cosmology that we know it are complete bullshit, is in itself complete bullshit. I believe I was asked a question. Is dark matter something that is assumed, plugged in, and plugged into the accepted celestial mechanical formulas because otherwise they don't work? All right, here's my take on dark matter. And again, this is what I tell my students, is we have observational evidence that things are moving too fast for the amount of light that we are seeing. All right? What is currently done is that for the majority of scientific inquiry, for the majority of astronomical work, it is assumed that dark matter exists. And so the question becomes, what is dark matter? Is dark matter baryonic? Is it photons, is it protons, neutrons, leptons, that sort of thing, that we just can't see, hence dark matter? Or is it something exotic like hot neutrinos or anything like that? My contention is, and I believe Sabine Hassenfelder, not to have appeal to authority fallacy, but I think Sabine would argue with me on this, or agree with me on this, is that that is not the first question. The first question is not what is dark matter. The first question is our understanding of gravity correct? And if it isn't, and that is a viable question. So either it is, which then leads you down to what is dark matter. Is it baryonic or is it exotic? But if our understanding of gravity is incomplete or inaccurate, then that needs to be an active field of research, and it is. There is funding for research into things like modified Newtonian dynamics. So to answer your question, David, at the moment, yes, it is effectively it is something that needs to be accounted for. We know that, I don't want to use that word either. Evidence tells us that within a certain galaxy, there is a certain fraction of dark matter. Again, based on classical dynamics of how things are moving, or how quickly things are moving around the galaxy, you can then effectively map out where that dark matter is. So if you're looking at any other question related to the dynamics within that or within the galaxy, then you would assume that fraction of dark matter. So dark matter equals gravity. We just don't know. No, that is not in fact the case. Dark matter does not equal gravity. Dark matter is something that is, again, first question is, what is our understanding of gravity in these situations correct, or isn't it? If it's correct, then it's dark matter, meaning that there is some gravitational influence. There is something that is acting gravitationally that we cannot see. It is not gravity, but it is sort of, what is the current position on gravitational lensing and dark matter? That is yet another piece of evidence that dark matter exists, in that we see gravitational lensing of background galaxies or galaxies beyond certain galactic clusters. We can make an estimate of the amount of light within that we can measure the amount of light within that cluster and then estimate how much matter would be producing that light in the form of stars and gas, and come up with a total mass. Relativity would then tell us how much you would expect a galaxy to be lensed. That doesn't match up. That prediction does not match up. So the lens is actually far larger, far more massive. So you have to have more mass that we cannot see in order for the relativistic prediction of gravitational lensing to be accurate. Yeah. Patrick. Oh shit. All right. So sorry. Patrick. For sec. Is what's going? That is a super chat. Hey, Patrick, who is I believe Patrick Lundquist. Sorry, he is the programmer who has created the Tychosium model. So, yeah, thank you for 50. Whatever units or whatever currency that is. I believe you said, I just cannot remember where things today. You are in Sweden? Sweden? Where are you from? Sweden, yes. Theoretically, I have lineage back to Sweden, but it's pretty spurious. How do we know dark energy, dark matter actually exists? Again, Patrick asked this. And I was saying, and this is ultimately what it comes down to, is that any scientist that's being honest is going to tell you that dark matter and dark energy are things that we don't fully understand, but are necessary in order for the observations that we have to be in any way consistent with the theories that we have right now. But as I just read, 13 esteemed academics, our theories of fundamental physics and gravity are either incorrect or incomplete based on these things. No one is saying that dark matter has been proven, that dark energy has been proven. That's not how science works. Science proves nothing. So thank you for gifted membership. Who's gifting memberships? Oh, Tapioca Weasel. Thank you. Tapioca Weasel's gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, yes, I Can Sciences. That, yes, Patrick is the one, from my understanding, who is the programmer who has created the code. I don't know, Patrick, how much you contribute to the physics underneath the code, or if that's simply Simon. But yes, I Can Science that. He definitely puts in the work on that. Okay, so dark energy and dark matter are not proven concepts. They are simply our best explanation for what is going on. It is our best explanation for a physical mechanism to describe the reality we observe. And that's all science can do. That's it, folks. Science can provide the best explanation that we currently have for how things in the universe operate physically. It says nothing about metaphysical concepts, anything of that nature, which I'm going to quote something. I'm going to read another quote that he seems to like. This one was by Hawking, which I didn't realize. In a 1995 interview, famed physicist Stephen Hawking summarized the implications of the mainstream cosmological model. He stated, quote, "The human race is just a chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet orbiting a very average star in the outer suburb of one among 100 billion galaxies. We are so insignificant that I can't believe the whole universe exists for our benefit," end quote. Let's look at this. I don't know if scum has a strict scientific definition, so I'll leave that one out. 100 billion galaxies, that is the only objective fact in that entire statement. He claims that we're on a moderately sized planet. We don't know that. We don't have a complete understanding of exoplanets. So, in actuality, some Neptunes are looking to be the most common type of exoplanet there are. So, that's an incorrect statement. A very average star in the outer suburb of, or a very average star, as defined by what? Temperature? No. I'm pretty sure that if you average 40,000 and 4,000, you do not get 6,000. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done some math, but, pretty sure that's not an average. If you average one half, 0.5, and, 30, 40, again, you don't get 1. So this idea that the sun is average, again, as defined by what? That's not an accurate statement. Outer suburb, I love that expression. Outer suburb. As if the center of the galaxy is some kind of city, which when you actually think about it, is an asinine point of view. And yes, I am salty. Is that if you look at, based on whether or not life could exist in our galaxy, it ain't there. If there is a region in the galaxy where life would proliferate and flourish, it would actually be in the middle span of it. It would not be in the center. So calling us a suburb, what the fuck is this? Ultimately, what I'm getting to is, apparently Hawking thinks that we're insignificant. I've argued in the past that Sagan has thought we are insignificant based on our location. I think there are some the anti-theist scientists out there who have said something similar. I fully, wholeheartedly reject that. And I can tell you, as I've said many, many times, we do not go to conferences and say, how significant is the human race today? Well, I've got this plot that says not. We don't consider that. If you're talking about, anytime you're going to hear this from people who have a platform, certain people who have a platform. If I were to have a platform such as them, if I were to be as brilliant as Hawking or Sagan, or as articulate and eloquent as Sagan, then I would be telling people the exact opposite. I do everything that I can. Every class that I have, I use the big blue dot to illustrate that, in my opinion, the humanity is the most significant life form in existence. Maybe not the most significant, but that we are significant because of how rare, unique we are. So this idea that I just don't understand that when my colleagues say this sort of thing, but science skeptics take this, latch onto it, and believe that is the narrative of all of science. It is not. I can't tell you if it's the majority of you or not, but I can tell you that at least I don't, and I know of others some colleagues of mine who are also more spiritually inclined or not anti-theist dickheads who don't even really consider it. So it fucking irritates me that it's in there. Are you using dark matter to mean non-baryonic matter or a more general form of observed galaxy rotation? So when I say dark matter, I basically am saying, I think the latter in that term. I do, when I say dark matter, I don't necessarily or I don't state that it is non-baryonic. Again, evidence is pointing more towards non-baryonic than baryonic, but I'm not convinced either way. So yeah. We are the only technological form of life form. Exactly. That makes us unique, which to me, and I think to any person who buys stuff, unique is significant. So what the fuck? All right, so let's go through challenging thought processes, shall we? Falsifying one model does not require having a viable or complete alternative model. That statement needs some context. If you are talking about science, if you want to keep this conversation within the realm of science, then yes, it does. You cannot throw out one model in its entirety unless you have another model that can supplant it, that can answer the questions that the previous model had already provided adequate answers for, and provide answers for what is currently that is currently on issue. I've heard Austin say this, and this as well. Well, I've heard Austin say this. This guy doesn't say it. Is that he makes the claim that scientists will do some gymnastics and basically to the point that our theories can't be falsified. And that's simply not true. Not being able to explain something is not a falsification. Making a prediction that is observably inaccurate is a falsification. Give you an example. The perihelion shift, or perihelion of Mercury, is measured to be 43 arcs seconds per century, if memory serves. From classical mechanics can explain a precession of Mercury's orbit, but it's far smaller than observed. That is effectively a falsification. Relativity, however, bang on. Its prediction is fantastic. So this idea that, howdy, Eric. I'm talking about the book that you sent to me on DM. Howdy, Nico. Let's see. Howdy, Al. Let me see this. Let me not be rude. Howdy, Robert, Peter, Al, Zombie Robot, Patrick's, of course. And yeah, I think that's everybody. Awesome. Having a lot of people today. All right. If we're talking about, so that's not what falsification is. Not being able to explain dark matter and dark energy is not falsifying our model. It is not falsifying cosmology. It is pointing out that there are deficits, there are inadequacies with our models to state that our model is at least incomplete. Is it incorrect? We don't know. We don't know until you can put forth an alternative that answers the questions of dark matter and dark energy. And this goes to something that's driving me crazy with the science skeptic community. And Alan, if you're watching, this applies to the aether cosmologists as well, or at least to my knowledge. I don't mean to strawman you, or I don't mean to misrepresent your point of view, but it seems to be all about showing how relativity is wrong. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of this is what's right. You know, I hear about ether and ether wind and all that kind of good stuff. But I don't see any experimentational evidence for it. I don't see any active work really being done on it. Now, you can make the claim that it is being suppressed, and that is exactly why I want to have conversation with people who think that, because I'd like to see evidence of what that is, of why that is. So, and I hopefully I'll remember. There's part of that I want to get into, but I want to finish off this thought. Effectively, he states, we simply don't know the answer. Why is it, this is a quote from the book, we simply don't know the answer. That is a viable thing to state. Why is that okay for, say, a geocentric or flat Earth model? But when we say we don't know what dark matter is, that is an unacceptable answer. Because again, if a scientist is being honest, we don't know what dark energy is. We don't know what dark matter is. We know that there is observational evidence to suggest that such a phenomenon exists. The universe appears to be expanding at an ever-present rate, which requires a negative or an outward pressure, which is described by the cosmological constant, which we have given the name dark energy. What is that? We don't know. So, and I'm saying, I don't know. Why is that not sufficient for the current understanding of cosmology? But it's perfectly fine if you want to throw out a flat Earth model or geocentric model that doesn't explain things like how the Earth formed. So I would say that, and again, as I've said many times, is that I don't discount a model because it can't explain everything. My question is, the things that it can explain are currently explained by modern science, by conventional science. So why the need for this new model? Now, if I know Patrick is here, so I'm going to use that as an example of sorry, I just read your comment and I completely forgotten what I was just about to say. Your comment is the anomalous precession of Mercury can, however, be explained without relativity if we assume Mercury is orbiting the sun while the sun is orbiting the Earth. I have, I believe, gotten through the book enough to get to that point, and I find that in that book, there is a whole lot of a lack of quantitative analysis. There's a lot of diagrams that show, yes, the precession is possible in a geocentric, but I don't see, and again, I could be very wrong, I could be misreading it, but I don't see where in your model you can account for that 42 arcsecond per century precession. And in the book, you clearly state, Simons clearly states, that this is a work in progress. Great. That's awesome. I applaud your effort. And I'm not going to discount it because it's incomplete. I may discount it because there are some physical problem, or there are difficulties. Well, there are problems with certain base assumptions within the text, such that the assertion that the Mars and Sun make up a binary system, that's just not accurate. There's no way that you can state that in really any way whatsoever, considering what a binary system is or how conventional science defines it. But I'm going to get off that because I have said that I'm not going to discuss that model until I finish the book. So, but anyway, so yeah, if someone wants to come up with a model, I'm not going to discount it if it can't explain everything. But I am going to ask, why should I look at that when I have a perfectly good model over here? He gives some examples about to justify this statement, which are basically just absurd, such as you're working with a team on a multiple choice test, A, B, and C. A, B, C, and D are possible answers. Your group decides A is the best answer, but you can argue that that A is in fact not the right answer. And so therefore, just because you can't state that B, C, or D are, you cannot state which is the correct answer, you should not be ignored for stating that A is the wrong answer. That's not how science works. Again, from a logical point of view, I guess that, sure, okay. But, and on the face of it, I agree with that, but this is science. This is not a multiple choice test. You're reducing this down to something that is absurd. To say that this example is applicable to how science is done is an indication that you do not know how science is done. All right. Big bold letters. This concept is essential to hold in mind while reading the coming chapters. In this book, I make no definitive claims about the true nature of the cosmos, and for reasons that I will discuss, there are limitations that make it impossible to promote a definitive model today. Instead, in this book, I aim to expose flaws in the claims put forth by mainstream science. Hopefully, by deflating confidence in the existing model, more attention will go towards new and better models. I have addressed this very thing, and this is what set me off, is that this, to me, is not an honest form of inquiry. Is that you are not, because Witsit has stated many times, he doesn't believe in ether. He doesn't believe in any of that. He just knows that it can be used as a cudgel to make people distrust current science. And that is dangerous, because that is not just, people do not believe in flat Earth in isolation. If they don't trust astronomers, they sure as shit ain't going to trust a doctor. So this idea, he's basically saying the quiet part out loud. I aim to expose the flaws in the claims by deflating so that deflating confidence in the existence model, more attention will go towards newer, better models. Read models that I have created. And that's the bottom line, is that, or not. I don't even actually know what's going on, because again, he doesn't say he is going to make any definitive claims. He's just going to try to punch holes in modern science. I think that is entirely dishonest, or lacking integrity. Effectively, you are not willing to put your money where your mouth is. You are not willing to say, this is what is correct, but I know this, but rather saying, I know this is incorrect. How do you know what is incorrect if you don't know what is correct? So, yeah. Again, that part of it, I would love to have a deeper conversation, because I know, as I'm saying, and I realize that there are valid counter arguments to my point, but I do not like this approach. I do not find it to be viable or helpful in any way. Is basically saying, you're wrong. I don't know what's right, but you're definitely wrong. Okay. 2, and this is a good one. I can science that states binary means 2. The goal is to reduce science to the same level as they are. They have no answers, and they insist science has no answers either. Yes, essentially, it is to bring science. It is to rob legitimacy of science, which it gains from the scientific method. This is the exact reason why the scientific method was created, is so that we have an objective standard via which we accept evidence and accept the interpretation of that evidence towards a physical framework. Oh, okay. For you, no, this is, if Meraki, if you heard a quote, it was from Mr. Gober, the author of a book, An End to the Upside Down Cosmos, rethinking astronomy, basically. Number 2, black swans falsify a model. I was actually surprised not to find a quotation by Nathan Oakley in here. This is from his book, or from the book, it's bolded. There is often a psychological tendency to excuse mistakes and defend the consensus model by using mental gymnastics, even if contradictory evidence is presented. That's just rich. That cojones on this guy. The cojones on this man. Balls of fucking steel to put this into print. To put that into print. So if you are not familiar with the black swan argument, is that when someone states that all swans are white, and you find one that is black, then therefore the statement all swans are white is falsified. The problem with this is, again, it's an oversimplification of what is going on, which actually goes to observations do not on their own reveal the causes of these observations. He admits later that nature is complicated. It could be that when you find this black swan, and if you look closer, the black swan has been painted. That if you remove the paint, the swan is in fact white. So, again, oversimplification, such that when we have these problems in science, these are not black swans. These are things that cannot be properly explained at the moment. So, again, it's just a massive misunderstanding of how science is done. 3, double standards are everywhere in debates about cosmology. If an existing model explains reality pretty well, it's easy to sweep under the rug seemingly minor errors, incomplete ideas, or unexplained phenomenon. That is just not how science is done. I don't know who you are talking to, but that is not how science is done. No one is sweeping this shit under the rug. Now, let me back up a second. Sabine has been putting out videos that, because she has a cross to bear, essentially, or bone to pick. And I don't blame her in that the way that modern science is done, it is driven through money. That's just the way it is. That's just how the world spins. Money. You look at any sort of technological endeavor, scientific endeavor, somewhere in there is going to be money. Because you need money in order to finance someone's time. You need money in order to gain equipment. You need money in order to gain observations. It's just a basic integral part of any kind of endeavor. Anyone who tells you differently is either lying or, oddly enough, selling you something. So in astronomy, we have to ask for funding. Like Oliver Twist, we have to go to funding sources, which, yes, do include NASA, and say, please, sir, can I have another? By telling them, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is why it's cool, yada, yada. In an objective world, there isn't much problem with that, but we don't live in an objective world. We live in a world where things are sexy. For example, in the 1970s, you couldn't get funding for anything that did not have anything to do with binary stars. Binary stars in the 1970s were the fucking Playboy centerfold of astronomical research. Today, it's exoplanets and dark energy and dark matter. If you are trying to do something outside of those realms of expertise or those realms of inquiry, then your funding, the chances of you getting funding are less. The amount of funding that you're going to get are less. This is a problem. Now, it's not a problem that I know how to solve, and Sabine, from what I've seen, does not put forward a solution to it either. And I don't tend to, kind of going along with what I was just talking about, I tend to not want to lambast things or point out problems in things without having some kind of solution, some kind of thing that we want to, or that could possibly explain it. But that's the reality of it, is that unless your idea is considered sexy by mainstream side, by the current people in charge of the purse strings, you're not going to get nearly as much money. Does that mean you're going to get no money? No. You are going to get funded if your research is compelling enough. Now, the bar is probably higher as to what is compelling as opposed to someone who wants to study or wants to find the Earth 2.0. That is a problem. I will fully admit that is a problem that needs to be fixed within modern astronomy. And I am not so naive to believe that this is solely an astronomy issue. It's probably also in physics. It's probably also in chemistry. And it probably is even more exacerbated in those fields because you really can't patent much in astronomy. There's really no industrial money to be made from astronomical research. But when it comes to physics, certainly when it comes to chemistry, now you are dealing with patentable objects that can very much bring in sources of revenue. And I'm sure that plays some kind of bias in there somewhere. But as I always like to say, I'm an astronomer, I ain't a chemist. So I don't know. That's complete conjecture on my point. So let's get back to astronomy and how astronomy is funded. So for example, Newtonian modified Newtonian dynamics. Is it getting the attention it deserves? Probably not. Is it getting the funding that it deserves? If you ask people in it, definitely not. But if you ask me, probably not. I think given the last 2 decades or so, 2-3 decades of kind of hitting this roadblock, particularly with dark matter, of hitting this problem with actually finding solid, compelling evidence for these things, we need to take a step back. We need to go back to that first fundamental question of, is our understanding of gravity correct? And so, yes, I think that alternative avenues of thought, alternative theories, or hypotheses rather, need to be explored, need to be funded robustly. Sadly, they aren't. In terms of the rectifying relativity and quantum mechanics, you have loop quantum gravity, for example. Is that well funded? I don't know, but actually Sabine is of the opinion that it needs to not be funded at all. It's complete garbage, which I find to be hilarious. Yeah, Mond is a serious stretch at this point. I honestly don't know I don't know the, what's the word I'm looking for? The cutting edge of where things are. But again, I am, the concept is, I think the principle is still valid, is that I'm sure there are other ideas out there. And I think that they need funding as well. But again, I don't have, Sabine does have a lot of hot takes. I don't have an answer to this. I don't know how much they should be funded. I don't know, I don't have an answer for that. All I know is that is a problem that exists. And I am fully upfront and honest about it. And yeah, Sabine is bitter, which is why I laugh, because her perspective is, ooh, she is not happy. She is not happy with the way things go. Not to say that I think that Sabine is 100% on with what she has said and what, particularly in terms of the state of things and physics and so forth, but I do think that she certainly has a point. Tapioca, you say that you're 95% convinced of dark matter. I mean, I am convinced insofar as I don't have a better explanation. There is nothing that I'm aware of that where dark matter, if it's incorporated, basically means that something else is falsified. Like, I don't... Basically, what I mean is a situation where dark matter should be influencing something and doesn't appear to be. I don't know of a situation where that's the case. So, yeah. I don't know. Absolute space, as we perceive it, consists of ether. Again, with that, there's no evidence that ether exists. None. And so I have a hard time believing that ether exists. Again, I don't see the necessary reason for why it must exist, because, yeah, semi-luminous ether, from what I understand, there are problems with it. It cannot explain certain aspects of the universe. So that relativity can. So until it can, I'm really not going to provide any evidence for it. And again, this kind of goes towards, not necessarily you, Patrick, but, I have heard people who profess that there is an ether and then that dark matter is bullshit because we can't observe dark matter. Well, we can't observe the ether either. So what gives? Why is it that one standard of evidence is good for one thing, for the thing that you believe in, or you believe is true, or the best explanation, yet it's not for what I think is the best explanation? So, if y'all don't watch her, plug into Angela Collier. All right. 3, double standards everywhere. Yeah, all right, kind of covered that. 4, observations do not on their own reveal the causes of these observations. That's true. Yes. That is the problem with the famous egg experiment, is that Anthony was believing that there was a single cause to the effect that he was seeing, and he was inaccurate. It is not simply just the buoyancy of, or the density of the fluid. It is also the fact that there is that the egg exists in a gravitational field. Hence why buoyancy is a thing. This part, though, is where, yeah, all right. So, this is long, but I think it's relevant reading. Imagine a situation in which people get sick with similar symptoms after attending a party. Then they conclude they, quote, caught something contagious. They caught something contagious. This is certainly one reasonable hypothesis. But to stop there would be illogical. I don't think anyone just stopped there, but all right, because I agree with you. Just stopping there is illogical. You should explore other avenues. The fact that people got sick after being in the same place at the same time doesn't necessarily mean that a contagious microscopic germ caused the symptoms. Okay? People get sick for many reasons that have nothing to do with germs. Okay? For instance, if people at the party were exposed to the same toxin floating in the air, emanating from the materials in the building, or sitting in the food and drinks served at the party, then there would be evidence of this toxin. And if there is evidence of that toxin, then that would be the explanation for why the people got sick. If there is evidence that all of these people have the same virus within their system, then it is I think it is well within the realm of possibility that maybe that virus had something to do with it. What if the attendees were exposed to high levels of radiation or EMPs? Again, there would be evidence of that, which there isn't. What if they were exposed to a similar psychological stressor that translated into sickness? Well, that's an interesting idea. I would imagine, again, there would have to be some kind of evidence. That's a testable claim. Therefore, to have a psychological stressor translating into sickness, there has to be some kind of implications for that. There has to be some kind of, again, that doesn't exist in a vacuum. That psychological stressor, has origins, which you can look into and test, and the psychological stressor probably doesn't just translate into sickness. It translates into multiple symptoms, or it translates into how the sickness spreads, how the sickness is caught in the first place, things of that nature. So again, interesting idea, but it needs to be testable. What if there was, quote, bioresonance, end quote, between the, quote, energy fields, end quote, of the people that mimicked germ-based contagion? What if it were what if it were unicorn farts, to quote a philosopher that I know? Okay. Do you have evidence of this? Do you have, Patrick, gotta go? Have a great night, day to you as well. He seems nice. And I'm not saying that because he gave me money. He does seem nice. I like him. What if there was bioresonance between energy fields? What does that even mean? Okay, again, there has to be evidence of this. Yawns seem to be contagious. Really? You're comparing germ theory to yawns? And it gets better. Women's menstrual cycles sometimes synchronize when they share a living space. We don't believe that's a contagious germ. No shit. No one has put forward that it is what? Where do menstrual cycles come into this? How is that even related to anything? So, rather than really digging for the truth, it's easy to find ourselves in a place of intellectual laziness, thereby a single explanation emerges and we stop thinking any further. I say again, the balls on this guy. His cojones are fucking steel to make the statement, once we have decided on an explanation such that the earth is flat and covered by a dome, we erroneously use that as the basis for the model into which that's not what I want to read. Rather than we find ourselves in a place of intellectual laziness whereby a single explanation, such as a single flat plane, not a motionless plane covered by a dome, emerges, we stop thinking any further, such as how that dome came into existence, what's beyond the dome, so forth and so on. Once we have decided on the explanation, we erroneously use that as the basis for the model into which all future observations are forced. There is the way that science works is that we come up with a theory or a scientific framework that describes a certain classification of physical phenomenon. Germ theory talks about whatever it is that germ theory talks about. You've got relativity, talks about how things move. You got quantum mechanics, talks about how particles are formed and interact on microscopic scales. So any observations that you make that are relevant to that framework, yes, they are fit within that framework because that's how science is done. If you can come up with a different way on how science is done that is effective such that progress can be made, I'd love to hear it. But But so there is certain truth to this, that once we decided on the explanation, we use it as the basis for the model with all future observations are made. I wouldn't say forced, but yes, all future observations are done under the context of the theory that is applicable until that those observations are contrary to what the model would dictate, at which point that becomes an open question as to why. And we have active fields of research to look into why that is the case, i.e. dark energy, e.g. dark energy. He then touts his book on medicine. Let's see here. This quote again. This is in bold. Many prominent mainstream physicists have discussed this, including Stephen Hawking, in his book, The Grand Design, 2010, co-authored by Leonard Mlodinow. They stated, our observations of the heavens can be explained by assuming either the Earth or the Sun to be at rest. Now, this is a point that I have conceded in a conversation with Witsit, under the caveat that I could be wrong, is that relativity, my understanding of relativity is such that there is no preferred reference frame. Therefore, you could set the Earth as as your reference frame, and thus as your basically point of origin, and then look at how other objects in other frames are moving relative to it. Or you can do that with the sun. But that is not the same as saying that the Earth definitively is at the center of anything. Yes, cat gets the brush. If you want to stay up here while I'm streaming, you get brushed. Brush, 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 brush. Okay. So, yeah. So, yes, you can take, relativity tells us that there is no preferred reference frame. And again, this is taken without context, so I'm not entirely certain what they're stating, but I would imagine it has something to do with that. It has something to do with that observations taken in one frame of reference are equally valid in another frame of reference. That's one of the postulates of special relativity. Physics works everywhere, regardless of who's watching it, who's looking at it. Then he goes into if Q, P, then Q, piss yourself. I don't give a fuck. Again, how many fucks do I give about rhetorical bullshit? I don't. It has no place in science. Fuck. The way celestial bodies in the sky look and behave doesn't necessarily imply that Earth looks and behaves in the same way. Now this is interesting to me. There is this thing called the cosmological constant. And the strong version of it is that physics works everywhere. Physics is the same everywhere in the universe, now and for all time. That is an assumption. And it is a vital one for astronomers. Because if you can't say this, if you do not make this assumption, then you cannot make any kind of claims as to anything beyond the realm of physical experimentation. The reason why we believe it is that, or the reason why we hold to this being a valid assumption, is because we have no evidence to suggest that it isn't. Nowhere on the Earth does the spectra of hydrogen look different than anywhere else on the Earth, given all conflating variables in the source or in the observation. The interesting part about it is challenging that assumption. What would it mean if the physics here are not the same as the physics in Andromeda? Because Andromeda is 2.7 billion years younger than us. That would be an interesting topic of conversation. Maybe they explore that later in the book, but they basically give nothing here. He states, if you look at bodies in the sky through a telescope, it is not logical to conclude the Earth must share those same properties. It is if you make the assumption that physics works wherever you are. And again, you have to have a compelling reason to tell me that it doesn't. Because there's nothing within physics, the field of physics, that would suggest that it's location or temporally dependent. That Newton's laws are only valid on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or are only valid, I should say, last week. But this week, they're a little different. So to say that it's not logical to conclude that Earth must share these same qualities, I fully disagree with that. And to me, that is essentially nonsense. 6, testing something on Earth alone in the present moment is insufficient to draw conclusions about the broader cosmos in the past and the future. Again, this comes back to the cosmological constant, and it comes back to, you're going to have to show me some rationale for why that assumption is invalid, other than it isn't, or you can't say that it is. It's an assumption. I can say that it is because it's an assumption. If I can't use that assumption, then you need to explain to me why I can't use that assumption, or why that assumption is faulty. So, as stated by physicist Robert Bennett, PhD, when we design a test, the test has to match what the hypothesis claims. Nitpick. It's not the hypothesis that we're testing, it's the implication of the hypothesis that we're testing. Bold. If you claim something that is going to apply throughout all space, you cannot test it only on Earth. If you say it's in the solar system, you have to be able to test it throughout the solar system. End of bold. This is what overlooked very often in the laws, in the statement of laws in space. Same goes for time. Does the law only apply at a certain time? This is violated frequently. You cannot know what happened in ancient times if you make measurements on data in current time. You can only assume that nothing has changed between when the event occurred and when you actually made the measurement. This is an assumption that is often incorrect. Citation needed. I would like to know when that assumption is found to be incorrect. Because again, at the face of this, what this is saying, if you hold to what he is claiming, archaeologists are fucked. Because geologists are fucked. We cannot know anything. He is basically stating that we cannot know anything that happened in the past. Because we cannot do an active research in the past. Effectively, the only way we can know about the past is if someone had done an experiment at that point, recorded it, and then we could refer to those experiments. That's it. So prior to the advent of experimentation, we can't know anything. We cannot know anything. I just completely reject that idea. That is so limiting in terms of scientific thought and technological progression, is that you have to assume that you cannot make any assumption of what the physics is doing anywhere that you are not. So if I drop Mentos into, as I always like to say, if I drop Mentos in a bottle, I can definitively say it's going to explode where I am. But if I do the same experiment on the moon, you're saying that I cannot know that it's going to explode based on the principles of chemistry on the moon until I actually go to the moon and measure it. That is bordering on the absurd. This is a Nathan Oakley right here. Is if you cannot physically manipulate what you are looking at, what you are trying to study, you have no idea, or you can never know anything about that. That is not how it works. And there are many examples of why that is the case, why we can do that. Oh, and this one I really, really love. 7. The way our eyes see obscures reality, and many of us are unaware of this issue. Thus, we fail to make the necessary mental adjustments. I wonder if he got this directly from Witsit, whom, for those of you who haven't shown up, who showed up late, Clive, he quotes Witsit earlier, and I know Witsit has said something to this effect. The way our eyes see obscures reality. Our eyes apparently are parabolic or some nonsense. On the most fundamental level, our eyes only show us a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. We don't see radio waves, X-rays, microwaves, infrared light, and more. See the image that follows. It's a standard EM spectrum diagram. If you're interested, look for any of my lectures that have the word light in it, and I'm pretty much going to show it to you. Even though we can detect invisible light with technology, we tend to be biased by what we can see with our eyes. The fucking cojones. It looks flat, therefore flat. What? Therefore, judging the cosmos by our eyes alone is problematic. No shit. But we don't do that. As you just stated, we can detect invisible light with technology. How do you think science is done? It's done with technology. Visible light is only a tiny fraction of the EM spectrum. Yeah, that's true. He talks about light attenuates as it moves through a medium. Okay, I don't know what that has to do with why you can't trust light as a form of communication, of learning. It's important to acknowledge that we cannot see forever. I think anyone would say that. Any scientist would be able to say that. There's also the other issue of we can't see forever because light has a finite speed. So we cannot see the entirety of the universe that we live in, let alone forever. Similarly, a visible phenomenon known as, italics, perspective, can lead us erroneously interpret objects to be rising or falling as they become more distant to us than when in reality they are not actually rising or falling. Put another way, our brains process visual information in a way that can skew perception. Ultimately, our visible space is curved and limited. It is neither linear nor infinite. More on this later. I don't know who this is for. To me, it's for exactly the audience that he is writing this for. Your rejection of modern science, if it is based on what your eyes can see, then you can't trust that. Science is not based on what our eyes can see. Science is based on what our instruments tells us is happening. Therefore, our visual space being curved and limited doesn't apply because we don't use our eyes to measure stuff. TM. So this is just not even relevant. This is not even whatever. 8. This is for Clive. Math is a tool. It is not direct evidence that a model is correct. And then he quotes from Arthur C. Clarke's 63 book, Profiles of the Future, the bold that he uses is, no equations, however impressive and complex, can arrive at the truth if the initial assumptions are incorrect. Yep. Duh. That is correct. However, and the end of the quote, I love this. Some of my best friends are astronomers. Oh, really? Are they gay, too? Are they black? All right. I am sorry to keep throwing stones at them, but they do seem to have an appalling record as prophets. Okay. Whatever. Arthur C. Clarke, your books suck. Take that. Anyway. Again, and then he quotes Tesla, today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure that has no relation to reality. There is some truth to this, particularly in the early days of cosmology. That's actually all you could do because cosmologists were so observationally starved. Before things like COBE, WMAP, before and presumably for Euclid, there are certain things about cosmology that we could not know because we just didn't have any evidence for it. So what happened, and still happens to this day, is that if you want to progress, you have to basically build models on top of models. Is this correct? Until you have observations, this is the only path forward. And if you don't take that path forward, you don't have the giant upon which to stand on. These models, these mathematical models that are created by very intelligent human beings that are trying to describe reality, even if they are based on a model itself that has not been fully vetted observationally, these need to be in place such that when the observations do come about, then they can be tested. Now, where I draw a line is things like string theory or M theory, mathematical theories that do not provide avenues of testing. I don't put any stock into those. Ultimately, a mathematical model must be testable if it is to be considered scientific, if it is to push forward the scientific endeavor. Clive, there are three types of reasoning: deductive, arguing from the general to the specific. That would be Aristotle. Inductive, arguing from the specific to the general. That would basically be Galileo. And defective, used by all Flourish, arguing, nah. I was waiting for that third one. I knew it was going to be good. It's just pure science, like in science that says, just pure anti-intellectual shrouded in a veneer of false logic, aka pseudo-intellectualism. Yeah. In this book, I will not delve into math. This is my shocked face. But inevitably, the question may arise in your mind, wouldn't equations have proven modern cosmology already? No. Science, say it with me, science doesn't prove. Science is provisional. You must always keep in mind that your understanding of science, your description of how the universe operates could be incomplete or inaccurate. If the assumptions baked into the equations haven't been correct, however, then the resulting math wouldn't tell us what we need to know. That's what's happening in cosmology. Citation needed. Nine. Beware of the, quote, appeal to personal incredulity, quote, logical fallacy. When encountering paradigm-shifting concepts, there could be a tendency to think, I cannot conceive how this is possibly true. I cannot, in my own mind, list all the steps needed in order for it to have happened in the way that it is claimed. I don't fully understand it. Therefore, I reject it. Truth doesn't depend on our ability to fathom it. Just because one can't comprehend something doesn't mean that this thing is not true. Similarly, there might be ideas beyond our current knowledge that we haven't even considered, quote, unknown unknowns, end quote. If he is using this as an attack against modern scientific thought, this man has the biggest balls of anyone ever. He must need a fucking dump truck to haul these things around. Beware of the appeal of personal incredulity. That's all science skepticism seems to have. Well, not all. I'll back that out. Aside from the few people that I know of who are actively trying to come up with rigorous models to explain things, that's all they have, is the sun can't be 8 light minutes away because it just can't be. I can't fathom that. I don't understand how it could be. So, all right. Coming to an end. Yeah, exactly, projection. Coming to an end. Keeping in mind the discuss psychological challenges, Part 1 explores our place in the cosmos. Chapter 1 explains the sun-centered heliocentric model and its implications. Next, I discuss the Big Bang theory of our origin, Chapter 2. Really, you should, and I've ranted about this before, you need to start with the Big Bang, because that's the model. If you're talking about heliocentrism, that's the Nice model, which is embedded with, well, actually, no. I'll walk that back too, because the Nice model doesn't depend on Big Bang precisely. But, all right, anyway. Next, I discuss the Big Bang theory of our origin, Chapter 2, followed by explorations about how to determine whether Earth is moving or stationary. That Einstein, if the Einstein quote isn't in that chapter, I will eat my hat. On stream. This includes challenges to Einstein's relativity theory and Newton's theory of gravity. Part 2 is a discussion of the nature of where we live. I present alternative ideas about Earth's shape in Chapter 4, followed by phenomenon that seemingly challenge the consensus quote-unquote globe model, Chapter 5. In Chapter 6, I delve into concern about NASA's history, the moon landing missions, and data obtained by space agencies in general. I hate to I bring this up to a lot of people. Apparently, Mark hasn't heard me. Astronomy was done way before 1959. So I don't know what to tell you there, buddy. Although the discussions up to this point focus on the emphasized physical nature of the cosmos, in Part 3 I examine metaphysics. In Chapter 7 I investigate a metaphysical framework centered around consciousness. And in Chapter 8, I discuss implications within the context of an apparent quote-unquote spiritual war between dark and light metaphysical forces. I conclude the book with a discussion about the importance of our shifting consciousness. As another reminder throughout this work, I do not make definitive claims, but rather seek to find out perhaps what is not true. Basically, what he is saying is that everything that I talk about is worthy of additional study, but I'm not going to put my ass on the line and actually say it's real. I'll let other people do that. So yeah, that's the book. That's the introduction of the book, An End to the Upside Down Cosmos, where he quotes Austin Witsit as being as a cosmology researcher. So, real quick. Chapter 4, Skepticism about the Nature of Our Home, Questioning the Globe Model, the General Flat Earth Framework, Circumnavigation, Day-Nighttime Cycles and Perspective, the Firmament, the Lights in the Sky, Seasons and the Analemma, the 24-Hour Summer Sun, Celestial Observations and the Azimuthal Grid of Vision, Aether Cosmology, Restricted Explorations of Earth, Ancient Belief about Earth's Shape. I give about as many fucks about that as I do about logical inconsistencies or fallacies or whatever. People used to wipe their own ass with their hands. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. More recent globe skepticism, censoring globe skeptics. Globe challenges. A globe skeptic's victory in the U.S. court. Additional instances of seeing too far. Ships dissipating over the horizon but brought back into sight with cameras. The horizon rises to eye level. Horizontal waves propagate. Underwater sonar communication with whales, or between whales. Specular mirror, like, wow, this is just a, holy shit. And this is not an old book, guys. This was published in this year, 2024, by Mark Gober. Oh, apparently there's a larger than normal extract in chapter 4, which was given by the original author's permission. Is there any chance this is a straight up scamming, folks? I read this before. This is going to be for Clive specifically. This same author has written a book, An End to Upside Down Contact, UFOs, Aliens, and Spirits, and why their ongoing interaction with human civilization matters. So apparently, if you read that book, there's definitive evidence of aliens in that. Which means, right after I get off here, I need to make a call so that certain people can know that certain other people are billing our secrets. Anyway, so the reason why I bring this up is that I can science that, yeah, he's got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that are along this same sort of vein. Yeah, it's quite possible that he is scamming folks, that he's a grifter. The same has been said about Austin. Same has been said about what is his name, Dearth, whose actual name I'm completely forgetting for some reason. I don't know. I'm not going to make that kind of claim. Is he making money off his? Is he making money off his ideals or his ideas? Yes, he definitely is. The book, I think, on Amazon sells for $17. 10 if you buy the audio or the Kindle version, unless you have Kindle Unlimited. I don't know. I don't remember how much the audiobook is. Even if there is one. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. All right, how long have I been ranting at this point? Actually, I have no idea. I do not see any. What time is it? 1:38. I started this ostensibly at 11:45, so 2 hours? All right. Okay. Cool. Cool beans. Oh, what is going on here? Why did this get all wonky? Okay. Fucking OBS. Christ. Anyway, Sun Genesis. Oh, there it is, live. 1 hour, 54 minutes. Yeah, time flies. Son Genesis, who I think is a disciple of Robert Bennett, or at least he uses Robert Bennett's science knowledge or physics, mathematics to base his, try to put meat behind his assertions. I can tell you that Robert Bennett, from my understanding, assuming that he's the same Robert Bennett that I Googled, is a Catholic apologist. So Robert Bennett is also a man of faith. I don't know how much that plays into his science, but we'll see. So let's sum up. Let me give you a summary of why I put the stream together, and why I am now going to continue reading this book. Is my own personal preference, or my own personal yada yada or whatever, is that if it's in print, to me it is more dangerous, I guess, and that is completely subjective. And I realize that it's probably just my inner boomer talking, but because that is how I get knowledge primarily, it's personal. He has made it personal, damn it. So that's why I'm going to go into this. But it just touched on so many themes. The introduction touched on so many themes that have been just driving me to drink in terms of this whole debate. That somehow, when it comes to understanding the physical mechanism behind what is driving the universe, there is some other perspective other than science that is valid. If you want to talk about metaphysics, great, talk about metaphysics, but it has no place in the same breath, in the same discussion as science. So the second half of his book, no, I'm sorry, but metaphysics and physics are two separate things. They are asking similar sorts of questions in what is reality, what is truth, but they're doing it in very different ways, and I think they're doing it in very I would go so far as to say they're incompatible. You certainly cannot do science with metaphysics. I would go on the limb to say that you can't do metaphysics with science. The two are just not compatible with each other as forms of inquiry. So, it drives me to, like I said, it drives me to drink when that is put into it. You know, and there are so many, what's the word I'm looking for? Hypocrisies in the sense that, you know, modern science, relativity cannot explain everything. Therefore, it is wrong and cannot be used. But I got this flat earth theory that can't even really give me why the time, or can't even really describe times and dates of sunrise and sunset, but I'm supposed to accept that as a viable theory? No, that's not how this works. That's not how anything works. You're going to have to supply the same evidence, or excuse me, you're going to have to use the same standard when evaluating what is and is not true. You know, and this idea, and also this idea that you can progress, because really, what is the whole point to any of this? What is it that science skeptics, what do they want to do? What is the point of challenging science, of accepted science? Is it to learn the truth? Because if it's to learn the truth, then making the claim or taking the position that you are not going to make any positive claims, you are only out to discredit what is currently believed or what is the current best evidence. That's not seeking truth. I don't really know. I hesitate to speculate as to what that is, but I don't know what it is, but I do know what it isn't. And that what it isn't is seeking truth. Science attempts to seek truth insofar as to how things physically operate. But we make statements. And also, and just from a personal point of view, I'm just going to go out there. It's gutless. If you are not going to make a positive claim as to what you think the universe is, but you are going to strongly say that current science gets it wrong, then you are gutless. If you want to say that I don't think current science is right, that's your opinion. That's fine. But to say that I'm wrong, that my entire field of study is wrong, but you can't give me, you can't tell me what is, even what is, well, I guess he's got ideas, but you're not going to put your money where your mouth is. That's gutless. So, and it is, I would lose respect for this man, or at least I lose respect for his viewpoints, because he flat out says he's not going to tell you what actually is true. He is just going to give you avenues of what might be true. Well, it could be unicorn farts for all we know, as a great philosopher once said. So, Eric says he wants to get back at authority and scientific authority in particular. Interesting idea. I'm kind of curious as to why he would want to get back at authority. What did authority do to him? The massive elephant in that's the massive elephant in the room of FE. It's pretty much uselessness. It's pretty much uselessness. Useless or whatever. Meraki, he doesn't seem to have any problem with Mein Kampf. I've heard that he has recently gone on air espousing anti-Semitic views and espousing that he is kind of redoubling on his he is a prophet of God and all this sort of thing. If there is a record of that, if there is a recording of him making those claims, I very much would like a copy of it, because I would very much like to talk about it. Because I've heard a lot of claims, particularly on the anti-Semitism point. I've heard a lot of claims about his views on that subject, but I have not seen any direct evidence of it. So I would love to see that direct evidence. The only thing that I've seen is that he has argued that Germany was somehow forced into starting World War II, which isn't exactly anti-Semitic. All right. I'm probably going to clip this, but I'll end with one last thing, and that is something that happened last night. And that is, my computer is apparently dying. I'm dropping frames like a mofo. So I was on Globe Gangsters, which, again, I mentioned, if I'm on Discord, that's basically where I want to would have it. Or if I'm on Discord, I'm usually hanging out there, if anywhere. And there was Toon was on, a part of his 50-hour cavalcade of flat Earth destruction. And I think it was Sea Lion who was presenting. And then all of a sudden, a number of folks from 24/7 popped in. Specifically QE and Indio are the ones that I remember. And they they popped in and just made complete asses of themselves. I think the only thing that QE said was, you're a whole bunch of duty heads, or something equally as intelligent as that. India was just being an asshole. But that's not what I was wanting to talk about. What I want to talk about is there was somebody in the chat who basically was saying that they had gone back, and for some reason, a 14-year-old British boy by the name, or whose username is Oliver, popped into the 24/7 VC, and QE was being QE, just ripping into this kid. Everyone apparently in that VC, or a number of people in that VC, were just insulting the shit out of this kid, just ripping him for his viewpoints on Globe Earth or whatever. And so I don't have evidence that this Oliver is male. I don't have evidence that he's 14. But that was the understanding of the people in 24/7. And I went over there. I was like, hey, you guys are what was it that what is it I said? I said, if you are a grown adult talking to a child on the internet, you need to rethink your priorities, or something to that effect. Basically, I was calling them out for engaging with a 14-year-old on a Discord, on a random Discord. And they had a problem with that. They're like, the first response I got was, he engaged us. I'm like, fuck, for Christ's sake. And my response to him was, well, you didn't have to engage him back. And yeah, it was just, I cannot vocalize how inappropriate that is for grown adults to engage with a 14-year-old, a random 14-year-old, on the internet about anything. It is wholly inappropriate. And again, I cannot, and this is my fault. I don't have any definitive reasons for it. I just know that it's wrong. Because, and there was some accusations that this is basically grooming, and grooming doesn't have to be sexual. Grooming is simply conforming a younger mind into believing something or doing something that they ordinarily would not do. You're basically being coercive. There's a power dynamic there that is you are, as an adult, you have a certain amount of power over someone who's young. You are physically more impressive than the youth is. You are presumably wiser and have access to more resources than the youth is. There's just a power imbalance there. And that by itself is wrong. Is that when you have a power imbalance over someone, you need to acknowledge that, and you need to mitigate any kind of behavior or interaction to only that which is appropriate. And talking about flat Earth in the middle of the night, for him, it certainly was in the middle of the night. It was, or actually really early in the morning, depending on how you want to define it. I think it was like 4 a.m. for him. I mean, I don't know. Am I blowing this out of proportion? Am I blowing it out of proportion that they were insulting, basically dogpiling onto a 14-year-old kid about how stupid he was for believing the Earth was a globe? The other thing that I just know is wrong is that they were trying to convince him that the British term for a cigarette is in fact not a slur in the United States, which is just fucking bullshit. Which again is, I I would say kind of falls under the auspices of grooming, because with grooming, you're going to lie to them. You're trying to manipulate them into believing something that is false. So yeah, and they were like, Discord's terms of service say that basically 13 and up is allowed. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Yeah, if you have a Discord server about, I don't know, Minecraft, and there's a whole bunch of teens in it, yeah, there's no problem with that. That's fine. That's appropriate. But this is not. And just for them to combat this, like they're defending verbally abusing a child. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Anyway. All right. Clive Wells, there's a video, a conversation with Witsit and brother Nathaniel about race relations and white nationalisms. Okay, I think that's the video that people were talking about, and I will look for it. Thank you for not putting a link into it. I can do my own research and find it. So anyway, I'm just frustrated with, Sun Genesis has a book out, Bennett has a book out, Simon Shack has a book out, Gober has a book out that quotes Austin Witsit. And maybe it's just selection bias. But I feel like, people put in the work to discredit or to combat bad information, to combat science denialism. It just seems like it's getting worse. Again, selection bias. It may be that I'm just not seeing it properly, but when I was growing up, I didn't see cultural references to flat Earth. I didn't see cartoons making fun of people who believed that the Earth was flat. It was not in the zeitgeist, but it is now. And that bothers the fuck out of me. So, with that being said, I thank you, Clive. I don't know. No, I'm not going to watch that now. Because, yeah, I did this so that I could get the shit off my chest so that I could potentially sleep. That is certainly not going to help me with that goal. So, so yes. So then with that being said, I am Professor Parks, PhD. I make content on astronomy, science skepticism, and mental health, specifically my own. If you like that sort of thing, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications, because I frequently, well, not so much anymore, but I am a chaotic sumbitch, and I will post pretty much at the drop of a hat. So if you want to know if this is going on, this sort of thing is going on live, hit that bell. Thank you for the folks that gave me super chats. That was awesome. I believe that was Patrick and Sea Lion. Thank you, Weasel, for becoming a channel member and gifting memberships to other people. That is freaking awesome. And so, yeah, if you would like to help me financially, in terms of the observatory, then please consider becoming a Patreon, or patron of mine. The link is in the description. If you'd like to help me out financially and see if I can try to make this into a viable second income stream, please consider super chats, super messages, or whatever, and becoming a channel member. So occasionally I do put exclusive content in there. So. And I hope to put more exclusive content into the channel memberships. I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly thank you all for being here. I certainly feel better about at least my mood. And so I can possibly get some sleep. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day, night, or morning. All right.